Welcome to the Women in Industry podcast. My name is Kirsty Davies-Chinnock. We're now on series 2, and today I'm joined by Jennifer Hughes, who's the General Manager and Director of Transicon. And since its foundation in 1967, Transicon has taken a leading role in the field of electrical control systems, drive systems, and industrial automation systems. Their tailored solutions are supplied throughout the UK and across the globe. And I do love a good automated system. I've got several here. So welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
And we're recording this on a very warm Friday at the beginning of August. So the sun is shining, which, thank goodness, it seems like we haven't seen it all yet. And I have to say, firstly, congratulations, because you've just announced a new Mechatronics division. And most people sort of launch it at their own factory or at a trade show. You launched it at RAF Cosford, so aim high, obviously. How did it go?
Oh, it was great. I mean, we love being a Telford business. We're very happy to be here in Shropshire, so we're very lucky to have that amazing facility on our doorstep. It's when we were talking about a technology demonstration, I had a look at our shop floor, which you may be able to hear in the background. And I thought, I've no idea how we're going to fit all of this and customers in. So there was only obviously one place to go, and that was the RAF Museum Midlands. It was fabulous. Lunch under a Chinook helicopter, as you do.
Obviously.
Of course. Where else? But they looked after us really well, and I really enjoyed the venue, because I often find trade demonstrations can feel a bit overwhelming when you walk into a few stands to visit, whereas this way you've also got the exhibition of amazing jet engines, special planes to have a wander round. We brought together a few of our kind of industrial partners like Bosch Rexroth and Keyence, who do vision systems, Autologic, who do virtual reality headset sets to show some of our designs. And then we had a few of the Transicon systems, which bring all of that together. That's kind of, our Mechatronics. We take all of the innovative cutting edge components and we bring them together to solve our customers' problems. It was really nice to see old and new customers and a few potential ones. A few of our customers actually sent their apprentice teams. I loved that, so watching.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was really nice, and it was nice to see things like increased diversity. There were more female apprentice engineers, and it was really nice to see and to demonstrate. And personally, it showed me that we can do events like that and they can be successful, because it's an investment in time. And I think of us as a bit of an introverted business, because we've been going for over 55 years. We do quite amazing things and we never talk about it. So it gave us confidence moving forward that we can be a little bit more out there.
I think it's one of the things that's changed over the last sort of 10 years, in my opinion, is that a lot of events were predominantly the senior leaders. It would just be the senior leaders there, the MD, the CEO. But now you are seeing people go, well, I've done that for the last 20 years. Let me step aside. Why don't we send the apprentices? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And I think, particularly in the manufacturing and engineering sector in the 80s and 90s, there was very much keep everyone inside, don't let your competitors see them or your customers see them in case they stole them from you type attitude. Whereas now there's more of a sense of collaboration across industries.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, I think we both talk a lot about UK manufacturing and that we need to work together. We need to collaborate to succeed. We need to not be afraid to talk to each other, because I think we've been guilty of the same. We've sort of just been more active on social media platforms like LinkedIn, because previously we'd sit around in board meeting and go, oh, well, all that will happen is people will try and poach our staff, and you have to have the confidence in yourself as an employer that looks after their staff that doesn't matter. If you're good to your people, they'll stay. And I think if we don't do more to collaborate, we will fall behind as a nation. And I don't want that, because I think we have a wonderful manufacturing sector here.
I think you make some really good points there. And obviously, with your new Mechatronics division, that's taking collaboration to a new level. So as I understand it, Mechatronics, it's multidisciplinary engineering. So rather than just mechanical engineering or electronics and computing, you're bringing it all together and doing it under one roof. So if your client has got a project, you're supplying a turnkey solution rather than going, there's the automatic handling system for that. Somebody else has to do the CAD aspect to it. You're going to do it all together. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, Mechatronics started off as quite a simple portmanteau of mechanical and electronic engineering. It's grown since the 1970s to include a lot more disciplines. So whether you're looking at robotics, cobotics, you've got software engineering, you've got the cybersecurity aspects, automation, all starting to sit under this banner. But the principle is exactly the same. It's bringing together those disciplines to overcome problems.
And obviously, it's sort of the summer shutdown period at the moment for a lot of companies. So I know you operate sort of 24/7 engineers at Transicon. So is this a particular busy time for you, the summer shutdown, with clients wanting new things installed or things changed?
Yeah, that's right. So we do a lot of work. I mean, traditionally we're a system integrator. So when we're talking about things like mechatronics, if you just take the mechanical out, we look after the other bits and bobs. So system integration is all about pulling together the software, the hardware, the power to electrically make industrial process lines and machinery operate in the way that they need to be operated. So we do quite a lot of work in the heavier industries, metal processing, automotive, and then things like food and bev and waste recycling. And a lot of the heavier industries still have those traditional summer shuts, at which point in time we're there to deliver all of the improvements that the customer would like to see before everybody comes back from their jolly beach holidays. So it does mean that we are out on the road at about 4 sites at the moment, delivering the systems that we've been building for the last few months. So it is, and we have the same at Christmas and Easter when there are other shutdown weeks. They do tend to be very busy for the traditional side of the business. It's kind of, because we've been doing control systems for a long time, it's that traditional customer base that we service at those times. We're constantly delivering control systems, because when you're looking at a small area of improvement, you may be able to do that in maintenance shutdown windows, or it may be that part of the line isn't running constantly, and we can go and do that whenever it suits our customer, really. But yeah, it's the kind of slightly stressful week.
Yes, I can imagine. We don't shut down, but we do tend to see. We've got a small competitor who does shut down, and we also deal with some OEMs, and they shut down. And we always know it's summer shutdown when you get, a phone call going, this large automotive company in the Midlands needs these for tomorrow. They forgot to order them. So we sort of sort of see that every year. In fact, I had a Facebook memory pop up last week going, oh, phone call at 7:15. Somebody needs 5 ton for tomorrow. Must be shutdown week. So if we're talking about the Mechatronics and the new division that you've set up, obviously it can be applied to any number of industries. Are there any in particular that I suppose this is going to be most effective?
That's a really interesting question. The way that I see it is, I mean, we're a UK manufacturer that supports UK manufacturing, and I think that machines have to be a lot more flexible in the UK than they do elsewhere in the world. We have a smaller market than, say, the USA, and we have a demanding market. So our machines tend to have to deal with more types of product, more variation. They have to be more ready to change. But what we see throughout industry is if you're buying a piece of production machinery, say you're buying a press, a nice big metal press, they are made in standard sizes, and you have to make room for that in your facility, in your factory. And we all know that space is at a bit of a premium here in the UK. So what we've identified as a gap in the market is we design bespoke solutions for you, for your shop floor, for your factory, to add the flexibility that you might need to run the product that the line was never designed to do in the first place. So I think the kind of the bespoke mechatronics works really well for the kind of the flexible UK market. It's also being multidisciplinary. We're making small improvements. So we've gained an awful lot of process knowledge. To deliver a control system, you have to understand the process that you're trying to control. And we've used that industry experience to start this new department, because we're now able to identify where you're best off investing, where you're best off improving. And bespoke mechatronics are very good for things like safety improvements. We do a lot of handling equipment. You know, in the UK, we are still moving really heavy objects around by hand, and it puts people at risk of injury. It's hard. We all talk about the skills gap and how hard it is to find the right people. So a lot of our systems have been replacing manual handling with automated handling systems, but bringing in the flexibility. Because the thing is when we've delivered stacking machines that were replacing 2 people. They were actually handling product that was up to 13 metres long and up to 150 kilos in weight. They also were handling sheets 300 mil in length and about 25 varieties of product. So we went in and had to design a machine to be as flexible as 2 people. There's nothing out there on the market that will do that, and that's where we fit in. And I think, you know, the way that products are moving around factories now is vastly different to what it was 20 years ago. And I also think we're there to support the smaller manufacturers as well. With, you know, traditionally we're doing big process lines for people like Tata Steel, which we still do. But now we're also looking at production assembly technology. So you might be using AGVs or automated forklifts to move your product around the factory. You may be looking at automated tightening tools or a cobot to help you assemble what you're assembling. And it's nice to see the adoption of that technology by smaller companies. And I think that's where we can, because we're not one size fits all, we can do a project to suit your business, which is probably quite a long answer to your question.
It's interesting. I mean, I bore people a lot by telling the story. We started automating our lines about 25 years ago, particularly on the sheet, because they do tons and tons a day. And, you know, we literally take the one sheet off the pallet onto the conveyor, it'd go through the machine, go down to the coach, and a guy would put it in another pallet. and we put ingoing and outgoing automatic pick and place. And we did this because I was polishing a pack of brass small sheets on a different line, and they were small and they were thin. You could pick them up easily, but I polished a ton, and I worked out I picked each sheet up 6 times.
Wow.
So I lifted 6 ton to process 1 ton, which I was just like, this doesn't make any kind of sense.
No.
And I still remember my lovely work husband, when we put the first ingoing and outgoing, and he was a supervisor at that point, he's a director now, but he looked at it doing it on the line and he went, I can polish that faster. And I went, you can at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning. I said, but I bet you don't at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I said, and I bet you don't in 10 years' time or in 20 years' time. So, we don't want people to stand there and pick things up. But again, you talk about the machines doing things they're not meant to do. We'll have people ask us to do things and we're like, I can't, I've got to have someone physically pick it up and do it. So it's going to cost you 3 times as much money.
Yeah.
And it does work. I think investment by SMEs has always had to be on a where are we going to get the most immediate return from?
Yeah.
And traditional manufacturing companies, particularly if they're owner managed, it's very easy to be blinkered and go, well, that line turns over 40 grand a month. How much extra am I going to get by putting that on? And, it's like buying a new forklift truck. That doesn't generate me any revenue whatsoever. But I can't polish anything if I can't get it off the wagons and load it back on again. So, I'd much rather spend the money on a new machine than a forklift truck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's, I think there's a lot more thinking outside the box on how we can make it smarter.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is something you just addressed, which is the skills gap, trouble recruiting people into manufacturing and engineering businesses. And you were featured in the Manufacturer last year about this. You were looking to you sort of attract fresh talent, and you changed your recruitment process and found you had some quick wins from it. So what did you change?
Yeah, well, when my role changed from finance director at Transicon to general manager, I started looking a little bit more into our recruitment processes, and I found, much to my chagrin, that we'd never had a female applicant for a technical role in 55 years. And there's a lot of arguments about when you can only hire from the people that apply and all of that kind of good stuff. But you start digging into it and you realise, well, the problem is you. And I think some of it, we were a victim of our own sort of heritage in that we hadn't changed job descriptions for years. So we were still calling a fitter wirer a fitter wireman. I thought, well, of course, a woman's not going to apply if you're excluding them from the offset. So we had to look through our systems. We changed the language. We changed the way that we advertised for roles. We used the CapMat field gender decoder to look at the language within our job adverts and to make sure that we weren't using purely masculine, purely feminine language. And then we've made our hiring more transparent. So we now encourage applicants that are returning to work. So if you're perhaps a mother that's had some time out, to encourage people, we are there to support you back into work life. We advertise now the rate per role and we one of the most important changes we made to our job descriptions was the bullet point list that you say, I want you to be this if you're going to work for me. We just changed the bit at the top that said, if you meet most of these criteria, please apply. Not because women are more likely to look at that bulletproof list and go, well, I do 4 out of 5, it's not for me. Whereas men, and I know this is generalising, but just in very general terms, will look at that list and go, I can do that job. It's a different way of viewing it. So we changed the language on that for our roles, which has made a big difference. We also started advertising them. We were very happy Made in the Midlands member, and we used their Made Futures site to try and apply to a wider pool of people, a wider market, and that also benefited and brought in more diverse candidates.
It's important, isn't it? I mean, I know we've a lot of people talk about it, but if you only fish in the one end of the pond, there's all of that, the fish over the other side that potentially could be great team members, great colleagues, and the next generation coming forward to become senior people in the roles. And again, it's going back to, I think sometimes it's very easy when you're working in the business to be blinkered. And it's not a case of we don't want to change, but a lot of the time is we haven't got time to sit and think about where are we perhaps not as good as we could be, and how do we communicate that to the team in a way that gets them excited about the new possibilities, rather than saying, our EDI policy needs to be rewritten and it must be adhered to, and there's no story, there's no journey, there's no excitement about it. It becomes a tick box, doesn't it? I mean, and you said that you changed to become the general manager role because you started in finance. You've been at Transicon for, is it 10 years?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I am the secret accountant.
How and why did you navigate this career shift?
Well, I, like probably most of the people that you talk to within family businesses, had zero intention of working within the family business when I was a young person. So I dropped out of university, where I was studying law. I was doing a part-time job in an accounts department. I thought I'm much better at this than I am at the contract and tort law that I found quite dull, because when you're reading through all of the kind of case history, I thought, let me try this. So I gained my qualification. I worked at an engineering company in the FTSE 250, the ultra aerospace and defence company. And I became a chartered accountant whilst I was there, working on some very interesting projects. I was never like an auditor side of things. I always was in industry and really enjoyed being part of the project teams on at Ultra. And then just over 10 years ago now, I was asked to help my family out because they needed some more forecast. It doesn't matter what size company you are, there are always third parties like banks, and they need to know, right, how are you going to meet your forecast? What's my risk? It doesn't really matter what size you are, you always somebody wants to interfere. So I came in to put in some forecast models for Transicon to bring my expertise in that area. I thought, do it for a few months, help out the business. Still there. And I
joined in 1989 for 6 weeks.
I love it. All of us are the same. All family businesses, we've all got that story, I think.
Yeah.
And I became finance director here a couple of years later. having put a few systems in place, and helping to support the board with the internal analysis to make decisions and to move the business forward, which I enjoyed. And being a small company, you also look after legal, you look after HR things with our external partners, and lots of hats, of course. And then in the pandemic, because we, like yourselves, kept operating throughout. We look after customers in the water industry. We were looking after a flour mill, which was very busy because everybody else was baking bread. All of that good stuff. But when we were all told to go home, all of my fellow directors were classed as at risk. So I sent them home. All the engineers were sent to work from home. And it was me and the amazing team that we have here on the shop floor delivering those systems to our customers. At that point in time, my entire relationship with Transicon changed. So it went from being very internally focused, except when I'm dealing with the bank or other stakeholders, to getting more involved in the strategic side, trying to bring together the communications for the business, trying to keep everybody in contact with all the Zoom calls and that sort of stuff, but trying to keep us together as a business and keep it moving forward during that time. And once things started getting back to normal, my father, who's the MD here, asked me to continue the kind of the growth of my role. So last year I became general manager. He's still our MD and looks after the customer and sales side of the business. We're a good team these days. And I've actually poached my husband, who is also an accountant. Imagine Christmas at our place. To look after what was my role within the business. And so it's been a real change. Real change in pace. I've gone from when I was looking after the finances and other bits, I was very comfortable in what I was doing. I understood the finances and the commercial side. I'm fully trained to do that. And I've gone from that to the vast majority of my role being something I never thought I'd do. So it keeps me on my toes. And I'm still learning constantly, but we are growing, and it's an exciting time to be part of this business.
I always think a day in which you learn something new, and you're still excited about how you can apply that to your role or the company, or how you can share it with your colleagues, is always one of those. It's a good day. It's a good day. It's how have you found working with the family? From my point of view, because I joined so long ago, I only really worked with my father on site, and I remember going into the factory, and I was probably about 18. I was shouting "Dad," and just felt, oh my God. So I actually I didn't call him Dad for about 25 years. I called him Pete. And it sort of, since he's retired, it sort of slowly reverted back, and I now call him Dad. But I sort of had like 20 odd years where I just called him Pete. I'd go Mom and Pete. I'd got friends who were convinced he was my stepfather. I was like, oh no, I just don't call him Dad. And when he sort of did the semi-retirement thing, he didn't work Wednesdays, took long holidays, and then changed it so he only came in on a Thursday morning, to get away from the cleaners at home. And he came in one day and I'd got rid of his desk. But he used to come in and just like tell me I was doing everything wrong, so I just got rid of the desk.
I'm going to remember that.
Yeah. So it's really effective. They don't come back. But it was a different dynamic. I mean, you came to it as a qualified, trained person with skills that were being used to benefit the business in a professional capacity, rather than growing your career within it. But there will still be some family dynamic challenges, I imagine.
Oh, 100%, 100%. It took us a long time to be able to have business discussions without bringing familial emotions into it.
Yeah.
It took us a long time to learn who we were as adults. I left home when I was 18, and it was the first time we were back seeing each other almost every day for 15 years. And I'm very grateful to have gotten to know my parents as adults, because in my mind they're still what I was when I was, prior to this, when I was 18 years old. And so that's been a real privilege, actually, to work with them. But making decisions and moving things forward when we disagree is very careful, and I think we're all very conscious of that when we are talking and we aren't in agreement. But negotiations are a fun business at the best of times, isn't it? But,
It is a privilege to be able to have that relationship where you're a friend and a colleague rather than, father or daughter or mother or daughter. It's a completely different, and it takes work,
Yeah.
but it is a privilege because, it puts you on a more equal footing in a way.
Yeah, it does.
But you do have to navigate it. I still remember my mom ringing me at work. I was about 17 or 18, and shouting at me because I hadn't tidied my bedroom. And I was like, I'm at work. Can you shout at me when I get home? I moved out not long after that.
I can imagine. Well, I still had even a few months ago. I'd managed. Well, we were in engineering. I'd managed to get a smudge of dirt up my face, and my father was, hang on.
Well, at least they notice. No one ever notices when I'm covered in oil. I literally will run to the ladies and I'll be washing my hands and I'll look in the mirror and I've like and I've been on Zoom calls, I've met customers, and I'm like, to the team here, and they're like, oh, well, we didn't notice. And I'm like, literally got a black smudge down my face. So at least you've got someone who cares.
Yeah.
Right, I knew we'd go over time. Finally, Jennifer, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Do you know what? This changes every day, because every day you think of a different piece of advice that benefits you at that exact point in time. I think the best overall piece of advice I've ever been given was when I was dropping out of university. And my boyfriend's father said, okay, you can do whatever you want in life, but you've got to have a plan. And that was probably the best piece of advice I've ever received. He said, you've got to know where you want to be in 5 years' time. You don't have to know how you're going to get there, but you have to know where you want to be, and you have to be working towards that. And I try and apply that both at business here and to, my life outside of work. So I think on the whole, it's probably that one.
Yeah, I like that. It's a bit, you need that, just that end goal. And it doesn't have to be the end, but just where you want to get to next. And you'll figure out how to get there as you go along.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us.
Oh, and thank you for having me.